Hello everybody. In today's video I'm going to be installing my K20 into my 1990 Toyota Mr2. Let's get it started. I guess first of all, if you haven't done it already, I guess you need to take your old motor out of your current Mr2, which I've already done. This car, I bought it as a unfinished project. Someone already swapped a turbo motor into it but never finished, and then it was missing a lot of parts, so I didn't have all the parts to finish turbo swap, so I went with a K20 swap. In my last video I've showed you guys how to install all the Hux Racing mounts onto the engine itself and trans, and then on this video I will show you how to prep the car for the engine to go in. First of all, you really gotta take the suspension and everything apart. So let's get it started. Okay, I have my MR2 up in the air. I do have a lift here, so that makes it a little bit nicer. On these MR2, everything has to pretty much be done from underneath. So what I would do first is drop this subframe here. There's a couple bolts that needs to be undo. These bolts up here, I already have this bolt out, and then there's two bolts on this side. What I usually do is I'll undo this rear arm, the ball joints. It's probably hard to see. Let me grab a light here. But you can see there's a ball joint bolt there that needs to come out right there. This, I don't know if you can call it control arm, track arm, needs to come off both sides. The bolt comes through here. I already have it loose pretty much, and then I'll show you how to get it out. Alright, let's get this subframe out. You have your two bolts in the ball joint here. It needs to come out. And then when you do this, make sure you have your subframe supported. I know most everybody, or majority of everybody, won't have a lift, so you're going to be doing this on the ground. So make sure you support your subframe before you take anything loose. Put a jack underneath it, jack stands. I have a little transmission jack that I'm using, but just make sure you support it, be safe. I already did the sway bar already. It's just sitting in there, but let's get these subframe bolts out. Okay, the next bolts are these track bar arm, control arm, whatever you want to call it. I already took it out of mine, so just for reference, you know where they're at. And then last thing is this ball joint. Okay, it should be ready to be lowered down. Oh, another thing before it comes down, this other rear, I guess you would call it like a toe adjustment arm, that holds the rear axle hub straight, is this one. So I already have it loose, so I'm just gonna grab it, take it out, pull the bolt out, and then this thing should just fall down. This side's already loose, but just like that. Okay, with all your bolts out, you're ready to lower the subframe down. What I would do is I'll just lower it a little bit, maybe an inch down, and then take a pry bar and then pry these out. Just be careful because this whole unit is going to want to swing down, so just make sure you're not underneath it to get hit in the head or hit in the face, well, whatever. Okay, I'm just going to grab a pry bar, pry this out, and then pry this one out. That should be loose. There, I'm just gonna drop it down and get the subframe out. Okay, once the subframe is loose, it's gonna want to swing down. If you look at that, see, like that. And then drop it out the rest of the way. Okay, I just pulled that subframe out, sitting on my stand there. Next thing I would do is tie this sway bar out of the way, so it won't interfere when you're putting your engine into your MR2 from the bottom. The other thing you really need to do is just make sure you clear everything out of the way, because you're going to be putting this engine from the bottom up. So make sure all your hoses and cables and stuff are out of the way. These are just some older lines and stuff that are still in the engine bay, but in this video I'm just going to show you how it goes in. I'm actually going to be taking a lot of this stuff out and then cleaning it up, cleaning some of the rust off, and probably run a new fuel system. And then because these fuel lines are so rusted out that it probably just need to be replaced, so I'm probably just going to run a different fuel system, maybe a fuel cell in the front. But as of right now, I'll just show you how to get the engine in the engine bay. Okay, to get the engine ready, I installed the 2 side mounts, which is the transmission mount, this mount, just finger tight. So you got a little wiggle room to move it around when you finally align it into the engine bay. Also, this mount is also finger tight, just so you can get it in there easier, and I have a little bit of room to align your bolt through your mount here. I have my engine on a little wooden pedestal that I made. It just has 4 casters, a couple 2x4s just to roll it around. Makes it a lot easier to move in and out when I'm dropping motors from the bottom. Drop them out of the bottom of the car. But here it is. I guess we're ready to go in. Okay, I got the engine underneath the car. Let's start to drop it down. Just make sure you center it up to where it needs to be, just close to where it needs to be, and then before you start going down, I always just go a little bit and then recheck underneath. Make sure I have enough room, not hitting anything. Center it into the bay. Okay guys, I pretty much have the engine lined up in the engine bay. What I like to do is keep the engine a little bit to the left side, so when it goes down I can start the mount from that side in first, and then once it's close to being past the frame rail, once this is past the rail, I will push the motor over, but I'll show you once I have it close. I mean, this isn't close, but I gotta move some of the cables and some of the hoses, and then we'll slide it right in. Okay guys, now you can see I have that mount right above the frame rail here, still loose. what I'm going to do is slide the motor over and then get it into this groove. And that transmount is pretty close to where it needs to be. It just has to be over. So I'm going to drop the car down a little bit more and slide that motor over. And then just make sure your harness is out of the way. And then your shift linkage, if you still have it on, put it on top of the intake there. But it's almost there. So I'm going to drop it down a little bit. As you can see, it's really close to getting there. And just slide the motor in. Okay, another issue that I'm running into is when I have this engine sitting flat on my wooden dolly, the engine is tilted back a little bit. So this side is higher than this side, so it's getting lodged up. So what I'm going to do is put a little my floor jack underneath it, tilt the motor a little bit, and then it should go back, fall into place. So let's do that. Okay, I got my cheap Harbor Freight jack here. I'm gonna put it under my little dolly and just give it a little jack. You can see the motor is tilting up. The angle is a little bit better, and I'm gonna slide it in the rest of the way. Okay guys, I have the bolt hole pretty much lined up, both sides. There's a transmount. And here's why I left the mount loose. So you can have a little bit of adjustability to slide your bolt in. So with it being loose, you can get your bolts in easier. And then just make sure it's pretty close to the right spot. And I usually take a little hammer and try to slide it in. This one's not 100% lined up yet, so let me line it up and then we'll get it in. Okay guys, I got it all lined up. Started, my hammer, give it a little tap. You can see, move stuff out of the way here. That bolt is through. Let's get on the other side and start the other side. Okay, back on this side. Have this mount lined up. Try to get good lighting for you guys so you can see. And so you got left this mount loose. You can see you can have wiggle room to start your bolt. Once that's in, okay, now all I gotta do is tighten, just get all your bolts started and then tighten them up. I use a little air ratchet and then get it started. Don't tighten it the whole way, because you still have to start tightening the other three mounting bolts that you have loose. So just snug it up a little bit, but still give it a little room to move. And then on this side, it's a nut and bolt setup. So put your bolt through, put your nut on it, and it's also a 17 millimeter. So what I would do, I'll just run the ratchet on there and then tighten it up. I'll just tighten this one up. Okay, it's just spinning now, but just gotta grab a wrench, put it on the other end, and then tighten it up. Okay, with those top mount bolts tighten, you can start to tighten the transmission bolts. Okay, that one's finished. Let's go on the other side. Okay, to this side. Try to get a good picture for you. But these 3 bolts here needs to be tightened down. I use my air ratchet, and then this one in the far corner on the left side, this bolt is really tight up against the bracket, so you might have to use a stubby ratchet or something shorter to tighten that, because your big socket won't fit into it. So let's get that tightened up. Okay, I just grabbed a 17 millimeter close end wrench here. I'm just gonna get that last bolt down here. It takes a little bit more time, but it'll go a lot easier than trying to get a socket in there. Okay, once that's tightened, the 2 mounts should be finished, and it should hang in the engine bay by itself. Alright, once you tighten up your bracket, mount, and all your bolts on both sides, you're ready to pull the dahlia out from underneath it. I'll just put the car up in the air and then grab the dahlia out of it. And then the motor is suspended by the two mounts, so let's get underneath and install the other mounts. Okay, once you're underneath of your car, this back mount is located here on these 4 bolts, and your trans mount will be this bolt and this bolt. So let's get that mounted up, and then I'll show you where it goes. Okay guys, this is the motor mount you're gonna need, and 2 bolts I have for it, and the spacers marked front. If you didn't watch my last video, I have the bolts in the description, so you know what size you'll need. But let's get this on. I'm gonna cut this mount started. Here we go. We give a light in there. Okay, the mount goes in like this. Your small spacer at the top, big spacers on the bottom. Obviously the long bolt bottom, shorter bolt up top. And on this side, that's where it bolts to the firewall. I don't have the bolts for this yet, but you get the idea of where it needs to be. What we have to do is tighten these, and then once you have it tightened, you can put a jack underneath it or an engine stand, and then you can get your bolts to line up, all 4 of them, to get that started. So let me tighten that up for you and we'll continue. The other things you guys want to probably note is I would leave the bolts loose and not tighten the whole way, so you have room to move this into place here. But I got my bolt started, and then you're ready to tighten it down. I'm going to replace these bolts because they're super rusty, but for informational reference, so you guys know where it will go. But that's how it will go. And let's go to the other mount. Okay, this is the last mount you'll need for the rear of the engine. This one will go on to the transmission side. So let's get that on. I'll go right here. Let me get some lighting and then we'll put it on. Okay, I got that started. But that's where the location is. And then snug it up. You can also leave this not 100% tight, because you still need to work the subframe into this mount yet. So but there it is. Okay, I've got the subframe on the transmission jack, and then I just want to show you the 3 mounting holes that will bolt to this rear bracket. So from underneath, you're gonna see these 3 bolt here, these 3 holes, and then your 3 hole from your mount is gonna be there. So once you put the subframe up into it, you're gonna drop bolts down from the up top, and that will get your last mount installed. So let me get the subframe back up, and then I'll show you that to you. Okay guys, I got my subframe back up. Motor mount plate right there, pretty much lined up. I don't have the subframe completely tightened because I wanted to have a little wiggle room if I needed it. But let's get some bolts in there. One bolt comes down through there. Get the other bolt. Those are the factory bolt that I have on there right now, just to show you guys where it goes. And from underneath, you can see them. It doesn't focus here, but anyway, you get the idea. Get those tightened. Tighten all your bolts back down. Those bolts there. Your rear mount bolts, and that should be it. It should be done. Well guys, this is pretty much it for this video on the basic on how to get a K20 engine into your Sw20 MR2. I have a couple things to button up, all the arms, ball joints, and my track bar here, and I'm done. So hope this video helps you guys to have an idea what you have to do to get a K20 into one of these cars. If you find this helpful, feel free to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll be working on this coming up, so I'll make more content for you. But if you enjoy it, I hope this helped you guys. Have a good one.